Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast.
Whoa.
Brenden, how are you? Oh, look at that. I mixed it up.
Yeah, it's on our toes. Honored to be first to be introduced. I'm doing well. Can't complain. Just booked all my Vegas stuff this morning. So excited for all that. Kings gave us a little bit more of a reason to be out there trading into the first round. So I'm doing well.
There we go. And of course, we are joined by KCRA 3's Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. I don't know where you guys are on with this, but I actually
podcast candle appearance.
Oh, yeah, no,
what do we got?
I got the podcast candle going. It's time for probably a new one, although this really does smell very good.
Is that the cold and prickly?
No, it's warm and welcome.
It is.
Cold and prickly.
All right, let's say you're going, okay, if you're gonna, I'm not really much, aside from being a man of larger carriage, I'm not really much for sweets, but what is like your favorite candy, or like maybe it's more specific, like if you go to a movie?
I like sour Skittles.
Okay. I have I can't stop from like messing with things, like when I in the like almost fidgeting. And so I love to eat peanut M&Ms, but I crack them, store peanuts in one cheek and eat the candy layer on the other.
And what is wrong with you?
And if not, it's
in your cheek.
It's Reese's Pieces, and I do the same thing. I roll the Reese's Pieces in my teeth and crack the outer shell, and then eat the inside. Yeah, what? I do that while I'm watching the movie the whole time. It's like
Sean's face.
This is just I'm actually very I'm very upset that I asked this question. I'm asking only because I watched a movie at home the other night with and a friend of mine joined me, and they brought Junior Mints because they're like, oh, I haven't, and I was like, I haven't had Junior Mints in forever. They left them. They didn't even. I think they ate like 3 of them. So I have this like gigantic.
Yeah,
you got to throw those in the fridge.
Yeah,
much like the Thin Mint cookies, the Girl Scout Thin Mint cookie. That is, yeah. But there's that's a lot of Junior Mints.
Junior Mints get stale. They get stale and they get
than
gross.
My head.
Yeah, my wife eats Junior Mints. It's her one vice. She eats Junior Mints.
So she does it like regularly, or that's what you know.
Yeah, she does it regularly, and she even gives like little tiny bits to our corgi who. Like when she's ready for bed, she'll have like a couple of Junior Mints, and then the corgi will climb up next to her, and she'll give the corgi like little tiny pieces of the Junior Mint.
So does she? Okay, I think the roundabout question that I was trying to get to was, I think Junior Mints are fine by themselves. I don't ever really get them. I don't think I've had these since I was I don't know, maybe at 5-10 years. I don't know. But like, I think my concern is they don't mesh well with popcorn. And by the way, for the record, I don't like any peanut. I hate peanut butter. I hate nuts. I don't like any of that garbage. So I don't partake. I know I'm in the minority in that. So I feel the same way. Like I understand the attraction to peanuts and all that stuff. Like if I'm getting M&Ms, it's plain, or the pretzel ones, which that isn't. I'm not even doing that, to be honest. I'm not doing either one of them. But I'm definitely not doing any peanut ones. I'm definitely not doing any peanut butter ones. My concern though is, typically that's like your substitute, because everyone's going to go with popcorn, right? For the most part, right?
Yeah.
Neither one would like blend well with popcorn, especially Junior Mints. How are you going to go from like mint to popcorn? Now, I say that because I know that we talked about it on a different radio station that James works for, and the one that Brenden works for or owns. Brenden, do you own that one yet?
Own?
No. Yeah, didn't you say it was your radio station?
No.
Anyway, so we have this movie outing that we're going to, and one of my favorite people in the world, Jason Ross, does something that is just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and I've witnessed it in person. He puts M&Ms inside his popcorn, like he mixes it up with his buttered popcorn, and to me that seems like you're getting melted chocolate all over. I just don't understand why anyone would do that. So
We're gonna have to see if Jason Ross kills people because it seems like he could be a mass murderer.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to him about this.
Yeah, that's not
all the
sane.
M&Ms would just fall to the bottom.
That's not sane. Something's wrong with Jason Ross. Come on.
And I'm gonna. So in the one we haven't done it in a while, but we center it around really stupid comedies that we all tend to. We like Step Brothers back in the day. We got a big group of people, and so the next one coming up is the remake of Naked Gun with Liam Neeson, and we have a group outing that we will be getting people together. And my anticipation and excitement for it is always good because of the group, but I don't feel like the movie's gonna be like it just can't be good, right?
It should be funny. I don't know.
Okay, your voice went up, so I know you're not on board with that.
No,
very high pitched. I don't think you've ever reached that tone ever.
I love the Naked Gun movies. Like I think they're hilarious. So I don't know. Brenden has no idea what we're talking about. The Naked Gun.
I know
movies.
the new one coming out. I am aware that it's a remake, but have not seen any of the priors.
Huh.
So are you in the group that's going to be going, Brenden? I don't. For the record, I only know a couple people.
Look at that. Sean's just like telling us about this cool outing with other people that we're not invited to.
Yeah,
Brian.
I think Sean's asking me if he's.
Sean's an asshole. Sean is one of those guys.
First of all,
I'd love to be part of the group, Sean.
Yes,
I don't know, Sean.
James,
we would like to be part of the group, Sean.
Well, but it's not. So I was invited. I'm not the orchestrator or the organizer of. Said
event. So now he's getting around it, saying it wasn't his idea.
No, you know what? We did do one recently in honor of one of the group members' birthdays, Chris Verlod. He's this strange, lovable character, and his favorite movie ever is MacGruber. So it tells you a little something about him. And so we went to this place down in Midtown in Sac where it's like I think it's like across from Zebra Club, but I can't remember the name of it. They basically show like movies that are already out on video or DVD or whatever.
Yeah, campy.
No, like it could be Top Gun but it's just like they have a way to show in like a small private kind of room or whatever, almost like a theater experience, but not like it's almost like you. It's hard to explain. I don't know if someone has it maybe in the chat.
I don't want to know what Sean is trying to describe because this doesn't seem like a place that it seems like a place of ill repute.
No, definitely not. No, it's like you can go like the one thing was I was kind of expecting, I was like, oh, maybe they have like a projector or something. And I think they actually do, but I think it comes from like a DVD or a Blu-ray or something, but you're able to see kind of like they actually have it looks like someone's house, but they literally have like a lobby and you go in and there's like a theater room that's quite sizable. They have some seating. Yes, Dreamland Cinema. Plate of shrimp. One of my favorite foods is shrimp, and plate of shrimp in the chat says it's called Dreamland Cinema. So look it up. It was actually kind of a cool place.
All right,
people are here for.
All right,
yeah.
Okay, we've squandered enough of your time on this Saturday afternoon. It's hot.
You're welcome.
I don't know about you. I went for a walk about an hour ago, and like my heart rate was at like 130 the whole time because it's too damn hot. We're hitting that part of the season. Yeah, Sean, I'm in good shape right now. I don't know. I feel good. I don't know what you're talking about. Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. We again, we're well known for like just messing with everybody and having conversations before we actually get into what's the meat of the discussion. But Sacramento Kings just went through the 2025 NBA draft. They walked into the day without a first round pick and only the 42nd pick in the second round. And they came out of it with a very, very impressive young man in Nique Clifford out of Colorado State, and came back the next day with Maxime Raynaud out of Stanford, a 7-footer. Kings fans seem to be over the moon excited about these moves. Like the response on social media has been really, really intriguing to watch. But what are your guys' thoughts? Let's start with Nique Clifford. And just to get the finer details of what happened here, the Kings traded the 2027 San Antonio Spurs pick that is, it's an unprotected pick when they got it from the Spurs. It's now protected 1 through 16. If the Spurs are better than that and, the pick relays, the Kings lose that pick. If it's 17 through 30, if they don't land in this, if the Spurs land in the top 16,
Jesus.
then it becomes 2 2027 second round picks. Of course, one of those is the Kings and the other one is the Charlotte Hornets, which they got from the De'Aaron Fox deal. So they moved up to 24 in the draft with Oklahoma City Thunder, and they select Nique Clifford. Let's just get your guys' initial thoughts on Nique.
Yeah, I mean, I like him, and I think also the value you just laid out, what they gave up there, probably a late first, worst case 2 seconds, and it doesn't, importantly, doesn't keep conveying further down in first rounders. It doesn't lock up future picks the same way that obviously Kings fans were familiar they were dealing with in the Kevin Huerter deal, but I mean, it cost Memphis a future first in 2 seconds to move from 11 to 16. It cost New Orleans, was, I thought, pretty crazy to trade an unprotected 26 first to move up from 23 to 13. So I think it's good value just in a vacuum when it comes to that deal. But Nique Clifford, specifically, a guy that's a little bit older, turns 24 in February, not a little bit, one of the older guys that is taken here. But you see a lot of year-by-year growth. First 3 years at Colorado before he transfers to Colorado State. A guy that has a lot of guard skills, grew from 6 foot to 6'5" between his sophomore and junior year in high school. So there's a lot of earlier ball skills that I think still translate now as a guy that can, I would say, score on all 3 levels, but I don't know. That's at the collegiate level in the Mountain West Conference. I don't know that you're expecting, him to do this off the dribble mid-range creation at the NBA level, but there's a little bit of that there. I think some of the connective playmaking, but more than anything, it's probably the combination of shooting and defense, a little bit of a 3-and-D guy here that you're ideally talking about. Somebody that was streaky at times from 3, but I think very, very competitive on that end and is a smart player, not necessarily a primary ball handler necessarily, but defensive end at his size. I think the idea is maybe 1 through 3 that he could defend. I think he's actually pretty good guarding on the ball, getting through screens, being slithery in that aspect, a really active defender. Some of the comps that we've seen are like Josh Hart. You asked him, James, about the Doug Christie comp, obviously, with that going to be his new coach. To me, he reminds me a lot of Dante DiVincenzo. I think a guy that can do a little bit of everything, but not really a master of none in my mind. Maybe, Dante had a little bit more blunders throughout games, I would say, while Nique seems to play a little bit more within himself. But I like the potential here as a guy that, turning 24 in February, you think maybe will be a little bit more NBA ready sooner rather than later, even though I'm not expecting him to come in and be a rotational guy day one necessarily.
Yeah, certainly really cool to see them move up and get a guy that they really wanted. I don't think that list was all that long. And I figured that if they were to move into the first round, that it might come with some roster attachment, meaning that they would be adding a roster player beyond the first round pick. And that's one of the reasons I didn't think really much would necessarily happen. But to do this, and clearly hyper focus on one guy in the first round. Not that he was the only one, but he was certainly the one that they were able to pull the trigger on and actually manifest a deal. He now goes down as Scott Perry's firstborn. This is his guy, and I think this kind of tells a real story as the type of player that he will be looking for. Somebody who's multifaceted, who can check a lot of boxes, but also, in kind of talking to some people that get to know him, obviously we've had, a couple moments with Nique himself, especially on a Zoom. You really kind of get a feel for how engaging he is, what type of personality he is. I mean, being an only child and just kind of still having the journey that he's had, I think is really fascinating. I think the struggles at the Colorado, when he was at Colorado, are pretty well documented, but also kind of going through some of that adversity and then still having people interested in him, like pretty much set to go to Loyola of Chicago, possibly even Stanford at one point, but really having an affinity and a loyalty to the coaches at Colorado State, and that kind of coming with some opportunity and recognizing that to be able to make the most of it, but all the while knowing that there's been some NBA talent there as well. So kind of a smart route. He's kind of been slept on. I'll be honest. I didn't know a lot about him. I'd push back a little bit on the Dante DiVincenzo because even though I think we're gonna have to see what transpires at the next level. His superpower right out of the gate is rebounding. I mean, this guy is an absolute go get it type of player, and that is obviously sorely needed for many teams, but probably with Sacramento Kings about as much as anyone, to give Domas some help in that regard. But that's a tough part when you're playing with somebody like Domas, and a guy who tends to gobble rebounds. Having that just nose for the basketball and trying to go get the ball, that's all effort based. So that tells me that he's going to be somebody that's going to absolutely pride himself in effort. And in talking to some of his coaches, there is a real fascination with the way he works. Like it's I don't want to hype him up too much, but in this draft class, it's considered legendary. The work ethic that this kid has, that he's absolutely become this workhorse and somebody who thrives off it. And if someone's going to idolize Kobe Bryant the way he does, I think that kind of goes hand in hand. So, a lot of encouragement there. I mean, who knows if it'll translate to the next level, but certainly there's a lot to like. And one of the things that I think is kind of going, and this might actually play more to Brenden talking about, the Dante DiVincenzo comp, is the fact that people sleep on his playmaking ability. Like, this guy has a real good feel for the game, and as a former point guard himself, could be real interesting to see how that translates to the next level. I would also kind of just point out that, like, he's such, like, everyone's talking about what the character guy this is, but he goes to a dark side on the court. I had a chat with Ali Farouk-Manesh, his assistant coach that basically just became head coach after at Colorado State after Nique left, and he talked about this whole mask on, mask off kind of thing that he goes through. He has a tattoo of the Joker on his forearm, and he really had to go there. He had put this persona on for him to get into a mode of being a killer. And so it's kind of fun. I'm interested in talking to him about that when he gets to town. But a lot of fun stories, a lot of fun stuff, and I think Kings fans are really going to like him. The personality is just completely off the charts. So it kind of reminds me of Tyrese Halliburton in that regard, because he's very, very engaging and very kind of checks a lot of boxes when it comes to dealing with the media and fans. And someone was telling me, he's like, hey, you see, like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going around the whole arena signing for people. That's kind of how Nique is. So I think fans are going to love him.
Doesn't DeMar also have a Joker tattoo?
He does. Yeah. But that one deals with the mental health aspect, as opposed to let me remember to be a bad guy on the court.
Yeah. That's funny. We had Ali Farouk-Manesh on the Insiders on Friday, and he had some really interesting things to say. Like, so first of all, Nique went to Colorado for his first 3 years and really wasn't going anywhere. Like, as a prospect, he just wasn't, like, taking the step. He wasn't an NBA prospect at all. He transferred to Colorado State and really found himself, and went through the 2024 draft process, and got a lot of feedback. And the feedback was, hey, look, you're probably going to be one of the better 3 and D players in this draft, but there's still a lot of room to grow. And so he decided to go back to Colorado State for another year. And it was funny, his coach said, like, really, he didn't want to come back because he's already graduated. But he came back anyways. And if you look at his stats, to me, it's really, really incredible to watch, because people are talking about how, he's a much better passer than you think. And, his freshman year, he averaged 0.4 assists per game, then 1.3, then 1.5. He gets to Colorado State, it's at 3. And then last year, he takes a leap to 4.4. And a lot of his stats read the same exact way, where he was kind of just spinning his tires in Colorado. His 3-point percentage was down. He gets to Colorado State. Again, it's an easier conference, like a lot less, top tier talent where he's playing. But his 3-point percentage instantly jumped to 37.6 and 37.7. And his volume starts to go up to 3 to 4.9. And so they said when they brought him back for that final year, it was like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's turn you into something different. Let's take that 3-and-D moniker and throw it away, and let's turn you into more of a jack of all trades. So they worked with him on, handling the ball a lot more, breaking guys down off the dribble, creating for himself, creating for others. Then they worked with him. One of the tenets was, okay, we're going to do this, but if you're going to be someone who creates for yourself and creates for others, we really need to work with your free throws, getting to the line. And so in his fourth year in college, he averaged 2.30 free throws attempts per game. In his final year, he averaged 5. And so these are steps that he's taken. And not only that, the rebounding, which he's known for, he really wasn't anything to talk about in his 3 years at Colorado as a rebounder. He averaged 3.9 boards per game. In his first year at Colorado State, he jumped to 7.6. And then in his final year, he jumped to 9.6, but 8 defensive rebounds per game. This is crazy. That's a crazy number for a 6'5" and a 1/4 inch, guard forward. So I think the Kings are really excited, and they think that they found somebody they can, I think he will be a rotational player, but back into the rotation type guy early on with an opportunity to earn more time. And I think the one other thing I'd add is, the projections for him were to go around right after the lottery, like 15, 16, 17 in the draft on almost every board. Like consensus boards had him at 16. And we can say, oh, there's just mock drafts and all that stuff. But when you look when you look at, again, like Tankathon, and Tankathon hits like the top 6 picks in the draft, and they hit like really close to the number with about, probably 80%, 90% in the top 15 outside of Portland pick. Look, I think the draft boards weren't that far off, except for with Nique. There's him and like 2 other players that fall. And I think the Kings they had a short list of players that they wanted if they were going to move back into the draft. There was a clear-cut discussion with the Oklahoma City Thunder days before. We know that because Jake Fisher started talking about that. But even like the day coming into draft day, man, there were a ton of picks available in the 20s. Brenden, you got something? No.
No.
Okay.
Deuce is sending me challenges for the middle of the podcast.
Great.
The other part is to that point, James, too. I think it kind of, for people who don't know, you talked about his stats, and like even in getting to Colorado State, it wasn't like he was gonna start. Like it wasn't like a guarantee that he was gonna start. And they had to put it on him, and like you said, kind of mix up some things that try to have him do some other things and fill some other areas of need to the point where they're not even running plays for him. It's just a guy who just goes out there and impacts the game. And so to me, that's super encouraging, because in the NBA, especially if you're a first round pick, I mean, all these guys have the highest amount of confidence and ego that they're going to be a guy that can be the number 1 or number 2 on any team. And that's the way to get paid in the league and find longevity and success. Like all those kind of go hand in hand. And it's to find somebody like that who wants to put team first and find whatever role is that equates to success for the team. Oftentimes is the ones that also, you look at certainly stars get paid, but you have to be like, teams are always looking for those role players that ultimately, someone like a Draymond Green, for example. I mean, that guy became an absolute star in the right situation, playing with the right type of people to do the dirty work. And I always joke, it's like, if you expect that on another team, like the time where Draymond almost went to Detroit, it's like if he goes to the Pistons, he has to be a different Draymond Green, and it probably won't equate to success, especially with those around him. So just a long-winded way of just saying that his want to do what's right for the team and be a plug-and-play type of contributor is encouraging. I mean, not to say that he can't be a star. I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying, but it's like that, to me, I think is very encouraging coming out of a first-round pick.
Yeah, I think in your role.
For sure. And having the versatility to potentially be able to fill that position, being a star in your role in multiple different roles, I think is the versatility that he kind of has here. And we don't know who's going to be on this roster in a year or two. So I've kind of come into the thought of like, maybe not putting as much stock into how do these guys fit with the currently rostered players and just more of looking at their own long-term projection, balancing both, obviously. But I think that he's a guy that you can fit around a lot of different players. If you're wanting to run DeMar and Zach out there, he can kind of play the one because you can still run your offense through those other guys, and he can defend the smaller player. Or Scott Perry mentioned in the press conference right after they traded up for him that he thinks he can play the three. So I think that you have some versatility here of what he could fill. And maybe the idea is that as he gets more developed, that he could even have some responsibility as a creator, maybe secondary sort of creator himself.
Yeah. I think there's just a ton to like about him as a prospect. Sean talked about his ability to talk, to speak to the media, to articulate what his thoughts are. I think that's top tier. His coach also said he's one of the greatest teammates he's ever been around. So much so that he said that when Tristan Da Silva was having his senior night and Colorado State had a day off, Tristan Da Silva at Colorado is one of his best friends. He drove up and sat there and was there for his senior night to celebrate, one of his best friends in the game. And just he said it spoke volumes to who he is as a teammate. Like, he doesn't stop. So like, look, the Kings are trying to forge ahead with like a new identity. And this is one of those guys that give him a couple of years before we start worrying about like how much influence he has in the locker room and stuff like that. But he does seem like a player who's going to come in and kind of hold his own and be able to, like be a part of the conversation. Lastly, I want to bring up the fact, he's almost 24, right? 23. He'll be 24. What is it, in February or something?
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the COVID kids, and I've brought this up before. I think a lot of people out there know. Like, I have two sons. One of them is an 03 birth year, and Nique is an 02 birth year. Nique lost the whole back end of his senior year in high school. He lost the whole, his first 2 years at Colorado were going to like sitting in a dorm room and watching Zooms, and then maybe going and getting to work out and play basketball. Like, the fact that he's 23, there's going to be this whole group of kids who have 5 and 6 years of eligibility. And I don't think we should hold anything against them. We went through a global pandemic. They lost a huge amount of the ability to go out and play. A lot of kids just flat out quit playing. And, the basketball world lost a lot of talent here of guys who just don't play basketball anymore because of the way the world went. So I'm not going to ding a guy for age at this point, for maybe this year, maybe one more year, because these are kids that really had a tough like transition from high school to college. And so we have to see what they look like. But, watching the last couple of years of development from him are just stunning. And it just shows you like he's got the skill. He probably just didn't have the opportunity. And I don't think a lot of kids had the opportunity during that stretch where he was, his first 3 years at Colorado, just kind of the way the world went.
Yeah, I think the year by year growth seems to be something that Scott Perry even liked. Obviously a little bit older, and there's things that come with that, but he came on the station, I won't say my whatever, Sean, and said that he likes when guys have put a resume together that you can really evaluate. He still thought they were the best players available at that point, but I think there's a little bit of a theme here. You got 23, 24 in February for Nique Clifford. Maxime Raynaud, that I'm sure we're going to talk about, is 22 years old. He spent 4 years at Stanford. You got Cardwell, who's 23. He's even older than Nique Clifford. He's going to be 24 in December. And, it just makes me think of this as a team that's trying to create an identity rather than already feeling like they have an established one. And I think the latter is the teams that would maybe lean more towards, let's get this raw ball of clay of athleticism, and we can create a good player out of that or help mold him into something. And I think that when you're a team that doesn't quite have that identity already in place, it probably helps to get guys that are a little bit older and I guess I would say more self-sustainable.
Culture guys.
I mean, first of all, the concern over age, especially if you're older, is complete bullshit. I mean, you're going to have the same rookie contractual structure as if you're 23 is the same as if you're 18 or 19. That doesn't matter. What's crazy to me is like people who are concerned about the age don't recognize that this is the age of NIL. I mean, I'll use Coleman Hawkins as an example. Another one of those COVID kids. He's from Sacramento. Had a nice career at Illinois. Has flirted with the NBA draft for 3 years. He set an NIL record going back to college for a 5th year at Kansas State because he was given $2 million to do so. That was a record at the time. So, like, the notion, like, you didn't have a single freshman, 18-year-old, whatever. Nobody went in the second round of the draft. So, like, because of NIL, these guys are going to be older because they're going to take the money that's right there in hand. So, to me, being an older player, it's just like, yeah, that's what NIL, that's what they've created. That's because of the landscape that is now college basketball and the NBA draft. So, to me, there's no concern about him being an older player. In fact, get used to it. That's what's going to probably become the norm, especially for second round players.
Yeah, I think less of these like 2-3 year players. I think a lot of maybe something like the first 10 picks, if not more, were all freshmen, right? It was all younger. There you go. Yeah. At first 8, all towards the top. And obviously those are going to be the elite talents, clear NBA guys. But it seems like, hey, if you're going to stay a little bit longer, then keep making your money. And I think it matters a lot less than that when you're picking in the 20s. Like I get valuing youth when you're towards the top.
Yeah. Look, I think the NBA world is changing with the NIL. It's a good point, Sean. Like it's changing, but also there's just a different group of players that we're going to see come through. And it might even extend for a few more years because, like, look, kids that were, in 8th grade and freshmen and sophomores, those kids are still coming through right now. And they're kids that, like, the AAU circuit just shut down for, almost a year straight, year and a half. So lots of interesting stuff going on. So anyways, like that's I think Nique is like going to be the focus of, a lot of what we talked about because, that's the guy that the Kings are banking on to actually have an impact, at least here in year one. The second guy that they went out and got, Maxime Raynaud out of Stanford, 7-footer plus. Lots of weird comps with him that don't make any sense. Like I've heard the Brad Miller comps, and like Brad Miller is an unbelievable assist guy, like a feel for the game, like just a clear passing big man. And Raynaud didn't really do that at the college level. It looks like his 3-point shot is better than his shooting percentage, which was around 34.7% this year. But a 20 and 10 guy, a guy who I think he had 25 double doubles, really impressive player that, again, was slated to go in the late first round and dropped all the way to number 42. What are your guys' thoughts on Reno?
Well, first of all, I just want to jump in and say the disrespect for Brad Miller, like people who are talking about Brad Miller as if he's just some stiff. I mean, let's remind people, an all-star in the East and the West during the Shaq era. Okay. So put some respect on Brad Miller, first of all. Secondly,
I agree.
Especially as an undrafted player out of Purdue becomes an all-star in the East and the West in the Shaq era.
Yeah.
That's come on now. It's supreme passing, great shooting, all that stuff. And I love when he went with the cornrows after he lost that bet. Anyway, shout out Brad. Yes, I think Maxime, somebody that's, at least it's funny because didn't know much about Nique Clifford. My bad on that one. Maxime Raynaud, absolutely familiar with his game. If you paid attention to Stanford the last 4 years, if you've watched FIBA, if you've watched any kept up with international basketball, kind of a familiar name and quite a character. If you get to see any of his off the court antics, day in the lives, I know Stanford did one. Another kind of, great personality. Teammates love him. You hear that all the time. And I think what's hilarious is, there's so much concern about, even though he's 7'1", excuse me, even though he's 7'1", he may not be this rim protector or defensive person in the NBA. And his coach, Kyle Smith, would push back on that and say that they didn't put him in those opportunities because they didn't need him picking up unnecessary fouls. Plus, he plays on the perimeter a lot because of his shooting ability and stretching the floor. His game to me will translate beautifully to the NBA. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but he checks a lot of boxes at the next level. And I think he has a lot to his dexterity alone. I mean, you look at Wemby, and I'm not saying he's Wemby, but one of the things we just absolutely, salivate over in terms of talent is the dexterity that Wembanyama has, and his ability to ball handle at such a huge frame, such a tall person. But yeah, 7'1", legit can bring the ball up, has a quickness to him, looks like he has quite a feel. It'll be interesting to see if he's ever put in situations like that. But Kyle Smith thinks that he and Domas can play together. Like eventually, maybe not right away, but he loves the fact what he's hoping for is that that Domas and excuse me, that Domas and Maxime can absolutely be on the same team for a while, so he can learn from Domas, but also be able to that their games could complement each other. And it's worth pointing out, like Kyle Smith also, before he got to Stanford, he was only at Stanford for 1 year. He was at Washington State, so he had Jalen Wells, he had Isaac Jones. He's produced some NBA talent, some guys that flew under the radar. And Maxime wasn't really a guy flying under the radar. There was always intrigue around him. And look at the jump that he took from the junior to the senior year. Junior year was good, but senior year was fantastic. And that's because they encouraged him to get out to the perimeter, to become that type of player at the college level. A lot of coaches won't do that for a lot of these bigs who go to the NBA. They don't love bigs shooting threes all the time, and they let him blossom in a role like that.
Yeah, to be the 7-1 guy that's the leading scorer on that Stanford team and shooting 5 threes a game. I think you mentioned the fluidity there, Sean. I think it's something that definitely stands out, not just stand in the corner and shoot threes, but potential to attack some closeouts, put the ball on the deck and try to finish around the rim. I thought the finishing was pretty good, but it's more of like a slitheriness rather than a playing through contact, I would say. And especially, obviously, there's going to be an adjustment to NBA level size. But as you mentioned, I would think that having Domas and Jonas right there to go out in practice, however many reps he may get this year doing that's a good way to warm up to NBA physicality. So I like the idea for sure. Playing alongside Domas or Jonas, I think we'll have to see. The defense is definitely a concern with Raynaud, and I guess you'd have Domas guarding the other 4, but you need these looks. Like some teams are running double big lineups. If you have Minnesota, if you have Cleveland coming into town, those are lineups where all of a sudden it makes more sense, right? But a guy that I think gives them a different look. They don't really have a stretch 5. I think that's something that's valuable for a lot of modern NBA offenses to have that. You could say Domas obviously shot the ball really well, but he takes his time lining up the seams when he's shooting those threes. I think it's a little bit of a different look with Raynaud. So I like that he just provides something different for this team, and fell later than I think most people expected him to go. Matt George said that it seemed like that was the preferred destination for him, and that may have factored into him falling where he did. A lot projected late first round, early second, ends up going to 42 there. So I think he provides him a different look. And bigs in the second round, I think I like the swing because it feels like it takes a little bit less to just have a role player backup big in the NBA.
Yeah, look, people like to throw out names. Like I'm seeing Steven Castaneda say that he reminds him Raynaud's ceiling is Lauri Markkanen. Man, that's really high. Like in all honesty, that's really high. The Brook Lopez comp, that's not a great comp either from Ron Price in the chat. Like Brook Lopez was like in the running for Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. He averaged over 20 a game multiple times in his career. He can't rebound a lick and doesn't leave his feet at all. Like when I watch Raynaud play, I think he's really smooth defending the perimeter. I think he's really smooth in the pick and roll. He might get pushed around a little bit in the post, and he's not as strong as you'd like him to be. But again, get him with a professional training staff, and the Kings might really work on seeing if they can push him out to be a stretch 4, stretch 5. And I think this, like Steven Castaneda again brings up the floor as Trey Lyles, a much bigger player than Trey Lyles, but I don't expect. I mean, there's a good chance Trey Lyles isn't coming back to Sacramento. And not that I think that Raynaud is going to play like right away, but I'm also not convinced that he won't. Like, this is a player that we have no idea what's going to happen. I think Domas is going to be back, but we don't know what's going to happen. Valanciunas, this team still needs depth on the front line, and it's not like the Kings are in a situation now like Portland is, where they have like 14 centers, like the Kings did maybe like 3 years ago, right? When they had all the centers, and it was like, what is happening here? This is a third big. And for right now, I think that's probably the right spot for him. He'll spend time maybe with the G League squad and time with the big team. But definitely a prospect that was worthwhile. And I think there's something interesting that, Brenden, you mentioned the Matt George thing. Like, Tim Connolly, the president of basketball ops or GM of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he came out and said, like, look, I don't know what's happening in the second round, but it was like 20 players already had deals worked out for teams in the second round. And everyone's kind of looking around like, what? And it seems like the NBA is like slept a little bit on this issue of teams working things out where a player will fall to them. And whether it's a team, an agent refuses to give, their medicals, or they're saying, hey, he only wants a first round guarantee, a 3-year guarantee contract, or he doesn't want a 2-way, or a player say, I do want a 2-way. I'm not going to, just, sign whatever with you guys. So I think agents are really working hard for their clients in the second round now. And I think it's kind of interesting that this came up with this specific player. Touch base a little bit. Go ahead.
Typically that works. Typically that works with an agent will tell teams don't draft, meaning they want their guys out of the second round. A lot of people feel the path is a little bit less rocky being undrafted as opposed to being drafted in the second round. So a lot of agents will try to steer away from having something set up because they may already have a 2-way understanding with another team. The 2-ways on the table, even a maybe a multi-year deal, whatever. But I don't think teams are afraid of necessarily drafting guys in the second round and having a little bit more control over it, but having draft rights. But typically, I think what you'll see more of is the agency saying, we don't want my guy drafted in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic example, the Trayce Jackson-Davis thing that happened last year. Trayce Jackson-Davis's people...
A couple years ago.
It was 2 years ago. Which, of course, Trayce Jackson-Davis's agent is Mike Dunleavy's brother, who had just taken over the Warriors. So at that point, they said they were telling teams, hey, don't draft him. Number one, he wants a full-fledged contract, not even like, I don't think the second round exception was available in that draft. They were literally demanding that he be paid like a first round pick. And, that's kind of the way it happened. They pushed him all the way to the Warriors, all the way down at 55. Now, like, it was possible, like the Kings had the 52nd pick. Trayce Jackson-Davis was a player that was, projected to go between 20 and 25. It had very similar stats to Reno at the college level. He put up 20 and 10. His passing numbers were better. His shot blocking numbers were way better. But he'd taken 3 3-pointers total in his entire career. So like, there is a way that these guys are working to manipulate the second round, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's not a situation like what we're seeing in Utah with the Ace Bailey thing. The Ace Bailey thing, to me, is one of the saddest things I've ever seen happen to a top tier pick, at least in the last like 20 years. And you're just hoping and praying that this kid gets away from what is more and more looking like a guy with just an agenda who is his agent and doesn't know what he's doing and has literally no pull in the league. When you get into the second round, a lot of these guys have like big time agents, and those big time agents have pull. They're like, hey, don't draft this guy. And if you do want to draft this guy, then, these other 2 players that you're thinking about as undrafted free agents, or maybe some guys that you're thinking about next week, when free agency opens, we're going to be a little less, willing to work with you. And that's where the Ace Bailey thing comes in. This guy has one client who already trashed his own kid's career. Sharif Cooper lasted in the NBA for like a sniff. He's 24 years old and hasn't played in the league in 4 years. And partially it's because of stuff like this. So it's kind of sad to see.
Partially he wasn't very good. The other part about it is I think it's going to be a blip on the radar. As much as I do think his agent, it is not doing him favors. I mean, he showed up today. I don't think it's going to be a problem going forward. And I also think that they recognize, as much as maybe you don't want to be there, that the ability to become a star there and make a boatload of money is absolutely there. The tough part is recognizing that there's some people that would, I think his agent would say you can do that anywhere. And he's probably right, because Ace, I think, is a absolute stellar ceiling type of player that will likely be a very big star in this league. But in Utah, it's basically table set for you for opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's what's weird to me, not to spend too much time on this, but like Washington's the preferred place compared to Utah because you want more run. Like Utah's not going to, Lauri Markkanen's the problem. I don't really get it unless it's just location preference.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it. I mean, they had told people that they only wanted to be like in a very specific small area on the East Coast. Like it was
close
like
to home.
The Knicks, the Nets.
That's right.
Like there's only a couple of teams, though. Their preferred destination was the Washington Wizards.
Washington.
Yeah, I mean that could be a disaster. But either way,
I mean,
like
the same reason he went to Rutgers. They wanted to be close to home. I mean, those guys, that was tailor made for them. And let's be honest, it's worked every step of the way. High school, college, they've called their shots and they get to go wherever the hell they want to go. I applaud the Utah Jazz and Danny Ainge for doing what they do, because it's like you can want, but you're not going to be holding a lot of cards. Do you want to throw away a career? And no, they don't. The answer is no, they don't. So
yeah. So I also think once he's around the rest of the team, once the actual NBA players roll 100%. In, there's going to be a couple of guys that put their arm around him and say, "Hey, dude, you got to cut out the riffraff right now. You got to get to a real agency that has somebody who has your best interest and is going to stop with all of this. And you need to rebuild what your reputation is becoming out in the NBA world." And they'll introduce him to Rich Paul and Bill Duffy and like
I think players will, but I think Utah might actually prefer that they have this inexperienced agent that can ultimately be taken advantage of, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know to that. So
but getting him a real agent is a big deal
for sure. Well, I think he can always be involved. He can always be there. And if you hit your wagon to quote unquote real agent, but also Rich Paul wasn't an agent until he became one. So sometimes you stumble out of the gate.
Yeah. All right. Let's we've got 250 people in here. If you guys don't mind, hit the thumbs up for us. That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for tuning in to the Kings Beat podcast. We're chilling. We just went through a whole.
Done.
No, we're not done yet. No,
wrapping up.
We just went through the first and second round guys. The Kings also signed Dylan Cardwell out of Auburn. I'm kind of intrigued by him. I would suggest this. Anyone who's out there who wants to know more about these players and more about like the draft process, Sam Vecini from The Athletic, he always has his mock drafts and stuff like that, but he builds a Bible on these guys. And it's incredible to go through and read some of the things. You have to download it. There's a password. And, again, this is something that I honestly think that people should look at because it really lays out some of the things about these players that maybe you wouldn't know and that might make you think a little bit higher of them. And again, like Cardwell is another older player. He's 23 and a half years old. He signed to a 2-way contract. And I think when you first look at his stats and you just go, man, the dude averaged 5 points and 5 rebounds a game. You're not all that impressed. But a couple of things. Number one, he's a shot blocker. Number two, crazy rim runner, crazy leaping ability. He's got good length and athleticism. And when you watch him play at the college level, he was a winner, and he also played alongside Johnny Broome, and that just made things really, really difficult for him to score, to have any sort of role, because he's playing with another big man that's more of a traditional, like in the post, back to the basket guy. And there's just, for me, there wasn't a lot of leeway for him to show who he is as a player. But what are your guys' thoughts just quickly on him?
Yeah, I mean, I like, again, it gives you another different look at the 5. Almost feels a little Isaac Jones-ish, but 6'10", 6'11", as a big, good athleticism, 7'4" wingspan. Again, older than Nique, 24 in December here, but you're going for an undrafted two-way guy. You're just hoping that maybe there's even a little bit of NBA production there, and that's a successful move. So I like the athleticism and just filling a role as a rim protector, rim runner, athletic guy.
That dude is like textbook tough. And like, it's funny because, there's always that player poll. Who would you not want to fight? Or, toughest guy in the NBA, James Johnson, always kind of gets the votes, mainly because he's a little different, a little crazy.
And he's like a 3rd degree black belt. Yeah.
Black belt. He's got the MMA, Krav Maga, all that stuff. Cardwell is I know DeMar DeRozan has the Debo nickname based on his name and growing up in Compton, but Cardwell could be called Debo. That dude's a bully. He's an absolute bully. Like, you just got your goon, your hockey goon. And, for being a big dude, he runs the floor pretty well, but just an absolute beast. Not the most skilled person. Everything's a lob threat, but he is fun. I mean, when you talk about tone setter, and there's a reason that team played in the national championship in college basketball. You just watch any of those games. I mean, that dude, especially when Janai Broome got hurt, like, he's just a physical presence. And you literally see guys, as my earpod falls out, you really see guys kind of run away from him. So when he's down there, he's just kind of a difference maker. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how he fits in, because having him and Valanciunas together, that's two. I mean, Kings aren't small anymore. That's two big dudes. So this guy's on a two-way. I think that, having him on a two-way is the right way to start, because he will have to develop some NBA skill. I don't think you can just completely make a career being that kind of hockey goon, as we like to call. But just kind of looking a little bit down the line. I mean, that adds some absolute size to a team that was desperate for it.
Yeah, and the 2 player comps for Kings people out there that you should think of with him, I think he's got a little bit of Yogi Stewart, if people can remember that. And
Yogi
I
Stewart
think
was a beanpole, though. This guy's got girth.
Yeah, but the meanness and the physicality, the other player is Michael the Animal Smith, who people did not want to mess with at all. So I did want to read something from Sam Vecini's draft guide on him. And it's Dylan graduated nearly 2 years ago with his business degree and has long been a student leader on campus. He was named Auburn Student Leader of the Year in 2024. He has an enormous personality and endeared himself to every source I've spoken to about him in the pre-draft process.
Character guys.
Yeah, high character guys, and very strangely, they just brought in 3 guys with college degrees, which is not something that you often see. So, smart kid. Sean called him a bully. Maybe that's who he is on the court, but it sounds like that probably who he isn't in person. I think he can have an opportunity at the G League level to sort of learn and grow and become maybe something bigger and better than what he is today. So that's the Kings have also signed a couple of other guys. What do we say? Isaac Nogas Gonzalez, who played for the Rip City, played up in Portland last year. A defensive menace at the point guard position, but without a lot of other skills, and is going to have to really, really learn the rest of the game. But like super fun to watch defensively. Reminds me a little bit of like Dante Exum, like in your face, length, athleticism, maybe a little Matisse Thybulle, just in a smaller frame.
Like Chris Dunn-ish. He had 10 steals in one game this season.
At the G League level, as like an 18-year-old, right? Or 19-year-old. 19-year-old because he's 20, right?
He's 21. 6'5", 6'10" wingspan, really, really long reach, and you feel that out there. A little bit of flash to like some of his passing, but definitely a very raw prospect at this point. Spent some time in Spain before being in the G League last year.
Yeah, and the Kings signed him to an Exhibit 10. So people who don't know what that is, it's a summer contract, so he can play for the summer league team. He can go to training camp. And then, basically they're going to have a competition, it sounds like, for two-way contracts. They did sign Dylan Cardwell to a two-way contract, but as of right now, they only have Dylan Cardwell on a two-way. Isaiah Crawford, from what I know, is he only had a 1-year two-way deal. I don't know if he'll be back or not. To me,
he will be part of summer league.
Okay. I would hope that he is back, because to be honest with you, the Kings talk about toughness. They talk about like the quality of human being, the physicality, the athleticism, the force that someone plays with. And Isaiah Crawford checks all of those boxes watching him play. And I would hope that maybe he gets another opportunity on a two-way, but we'll have to see what happens. Plus, really smart. Like introspective kid, sits in his locker, reads a lot of books, quiet but respectful. And to me, like, again, another type of culture guy that you might want to hold on to just in case that 6'5", 220-pound frame ends up being a ball player.
So then the other two-way was Mason, who's no longer eligible, right?
Say that again.
The other two-way spot previously was Mason, and he's no longer eligible.
Yeah, he's no longer eligible. Yep. Okay. We talked about the free agency situation. The draft situation, but we have free agency starting on Monday. We'll probably have podcasts this week because there's probably going to be a whole lot of stuff to talk about. The Kings have not addressed their point guard situation. But again, I don't think you can address your point guard situation in a draft that you don't have a first-round pick in. Even if you move into said draft, you're probably still looking at a backup point guard. And I would make the argument that it's easier to find a wing late in a draft that could actually play in year one than it is to find a point guard later in a draft that, just kind of become sort of a player to bring along and develop. I just think it's really tough to find a point guard deep in a draft and expect them to perform early in their careers. But we also have the Keon Ellis situation, and the Keon Ellis situation has to be figured out by tomorrow. He is, of course, the Kings have a $2 million option for him this year. If he picks up that option, if the Kings pick up that option, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. If they don't pick up his option and allow him to become a free agent right now, he becomes a restricted free agent that can match any offer for him. And judging by what's happened today, I think the Kings are in a really rough spot with Keon. And that's because Sam Merrill just signed a 4-year, $38 million contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And of course, Sam Merrill can shoot the lights out of the ball, but he can't really play defense anywhere. Well, nowhere near what we've seen from Keon. And then Davion Mitchell just signed a 2-year, $24 million deal. And that's going to be a problem for the Kings because Keon, to me, is probably league-wide considered a better option than either one of those players just because of his size and athleticism and three-point shooting. Where are we at with this, guys? What do we think is going to happen with Keon here in the next 24 hours, but more like the next 48 to 72 hours?
Yeah, if you do let him reach restricted, I think part of the interesting aspect here is like is the MLE what he's going to get out there? I think that's probably roughly the range that we're talking about, and the Kings would have to match. But teams have to have money available to offer it. And I don't know if like Brooklyn, who is the one really controlling the market, is going to be the one that's going to come in and offer him some ridiculous deal. I don't think that makes much sense from their perspective. So I'm sure from Keon's side, you would love for them to turn this down and like get closer to what your actual on-court value is sooner rather than later. And if the Kings do just let him play through this next year at a lower value than what his production is, then, maybe there's some strong feelings going into unrestricted free agency. So I kind of think that if the Kings don't get a deal done, it probably doesn't spell very well for next season when he eventually reaches the open market. So try to get something done. But yeah, I guess around that MLE range is probably, in my mind, where we're roughly talking about if he were to reach restricted.
Yeah, the MLE is 14.1 million starting salary, and he would get that plus if that's what he's going to get on the open market, he'd get that and a maximum of 5% raises if somebody offered the full MLE. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, I think they love Keon, but I think again, I don't know this to be true, but I think keeping him outside of restricted free agency is ultimately what they want to do. It's just not good. It's just never sets the table well. And feelings kind of get involved. And so I don't know I'm sure I know. I don't think either side really wants restricted free agency. So
I think he wants to get paid right now.
Yeah.
I think
100%. But I also think there's the pay aspect, but there's also recognizing that he's got an opportunity in Sacramento to a degree. Like he has a very active role. It's been a great story to see him go from the player he was through the G League to a two-way to all of a sudden having a prime role and now be coveted in the way that that exactly why the G League exists for stories like this. So I think the Kings trying to keep him a part of that storyline and rewarding it would absolutely be big, but realizing that you've got a lot of decisions that have to be made. So I don't know if you can keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, one of the issues, like the Kings can work out a contract with him right now. They have a window right now where they can negotiate a deal. They could decline his option and already have a deal waiting for him that he signs on day one of free agency, or at least he commits to, and then you go and sign him to that deal later. I think the problem that you have is, number one, the only team out there, like Brenden said, that has actual cap space. It's not just an MLE, because I think the Kings would match an MLE. Like I think they'd have to, because I think that's where Keon's value's gone, at least to that level. But the only other team that has cap space is Brooklyn. Well, they have a ton of cap space, and Jordi Fernandez is there, and there's ties there with Keon. And so I would be slightly concerned that they do something silly just to mess with the Kings and just give him an offer like something. I don't think this would happen, but kind of like what Bruce Brown got, like a 2-year 48 or even a 2-year 40, that just gets so rich that the Kings are like, okay, we can't do that. So it's a tough place to be. But if they do pick up his option and he has to play for $2 million this year, they can instantly work out a contract for him, a contract extension that, again, is much more in line with what what his actual value is. And maybe in that situation, they do have to give him a little bit more, because he's going to have to play for less this year. But I also think, to be honest with you, I think they can give him a signing bonus on a contract extension and maybe find a way to sneak him a little bit of money this year. I'd have to look it up a little bit more, but losing Keon would not be a good thing at all in my book. Sean, you look perplexed.
The signing bonus was I hadn't heard that, so.
Well, you can do signing bonuses, but I don't know. It might not be available until the end of his contract. But yeah, I mean, players are able to get some money up front. They have choices in how they want to take the money.
I think that I was also trying to catch up on some of these messages in the chat, which we've been doing a bad job of answering a lot of questions in here. What do we?
We're not getting derailed yet, Sean. We're not derailed yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay,
we will get derailed. We will get derailed, and we'll get derailed soon. Here's the other problem that the Kings have is that they did not get a point guard at all. And again, there have been some trades for point guards. We saw another trade today where Lonzo Ball was shipped to the Cavs for Isaac Okoro, which to be honest with you, I really like Isaac Okoro still. But that deal, like Alonzo's off the board. CJ McCollum got traded for Jordan Poole. So those are guys that are kind of off the board.
Simons and Drew got traded.
Yeah, Drew got traded. What were you saying, Sean?
So that was a bad trade. Joe Dumars hasn't had a great start to his New Orleans tenure.
No, he has not.
It's been a
night was the worst trade.
Mess.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. I am hearing, we've heard rumors over the last few days, over the last maybe week, about the potential for Dennis Schroder and what that might look like. And at first, it sounded more like an opportunity for his agent to run up the price a little bit on the Detroit Pistons.
You think?
And I got to be honest, I'm more and more I'm hearing as we get closer to the actual stuff happening here. Again, teams aren't allowed to negotiate right now with free agents, but I would not be surprised to see Dennis Schroder land in Sacramento on something like a 2-year deal. So there's enough smoke there that a 2-year full mid-level like 2-year 28 doesn't sound like it's far out of the realm of possibility. It's a move. I mean, that's how I would describe it. You have a point guard, I guess. But for me, to be honest, I like Malik Monk's age and his play as much or more than I do Schroder. And I would keep the guy I have under contract. But if this is what Scott Perry and those guys want to do, they want to change the direction of this team. It probably is like a stopgap that might make a little bit of sense.
I'm not anti Dennis Schroder at all, but paying him $14 million a year is something I'd be very anti of doing.
Scott was on 3 teams last year.
He's
been whatever team he's on this year, it will likely be his 10th team.
And to be honest, he should probably stay in Detroit. And I kind of think that might happen.
He did pretty well in Detroit. I was asking Hunter about him. Hunter Patterson used to cover the Kings. He went over there to Detroit last year and was saying, maybe the jumper wasn't the cleanest looking thing ever, but that he really mattered in the locker room for some of those guys. Like Cade credited him for a lot of things and that he was a pretty good vet and just sort of orchestrator of all things for these guys. So I think stopgap, like you mentioned, James, seems like sort of what would be going on there. And while Scott Perry, Domantas Sabonis, seems like everybody on the Kings pretty clear, they need a point guard. If you don't have your long-term option that you like right away, like Scott Perry may be dealing with right now, then don't force the issue and wait until you find something that you do like. Make temporary moves to fill that position in the meantime that don't lock up your books long-term, and you can still maintain flexibility. And I think being opportunistic is something we've heard Perry talk about. So if you feel like this is the best path for you, cost considered, obviously seeming to move on from Trae Young, the Darius Garland conversation, some of the other guys that we mentioned move around the league. I guess it makes sense. I don't love Dennis Schroder necessarily, but he does fill the hole temporarily. I think as long as it's not too many years or a high salary, that he's a guy that could make sense. And some of the other free agents heard floated around like Tyus Jones, Russell Westbrook. I think I feel pretty similarly about all these guys, but kind of feels like next year, this is a process for Scott Perry to make it his team still. And I think that might carry over into this next season as well.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you guys a random one. Masai Ujiri parted ways with the Toronto Raptors yesterday out of nowhere after the draft. To see a president of basketball ops / GM go 2 or 3 days before free agency starts and after the draft, that was a bit jarring. And I'm just wondering, how much do you think that impacts the Kings? Because the Kings, again, there's been a lot of talk that Ujiri really liked Malik Monk and thought he would fit perfectly in their system. They've got Emmanuel Quickley. They've got RJ Barrett, who are both draft picks from Scott Perry that might make sense in Sacramento. And I'm just wondering where you guys are at with this, because it does seem like there was potential for something there that probably, that might not be there now.
I don't know. I don't think one has to. I think a lot of that. I think they've got their front office still pretty much intact. I don't know that. Certainly, Masai Ujiri had run things over there, but they've got they're going to be just fine. I love Masai. He's taken a much more of a operations type of role over the past couple of years as opposed to being the day-to-day GM. But I'm with you, James. The timing is very odd, very, very odd. It to me, it has all the. The guy made a ton of money. I think it has all the inner workings of I need a break, and I'm kind of hoping that's the case. I don't know if there's anything terrible that went on there. Hopefully not, but I haven't heard anything. But I think that just has a lot of reads of I need to step away.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's definitely weird. Raptors fans are very not happy. Obviously, Masai was very front facing of all this, but like you mentioned, Bobby Webster still there. He's going to fill that role. But as new, I think ownership is the proper word, sort of came in for Toronto. It's interesting timing to see this change sort of take place. But I don't know. I never loved the RJ Barrett idea if we're talking about just that perspective. I think Emmanuel Quickley is a guy that I do think would make a lot of sense for the Kings. And like you mentioned, the prior Scott Perry connection. So maybe something you could revisit, but I guess I tend to side with Sean a little bit. A lot of the same guys are still there. And you would imagine that their philosophy on how they value what Sacramento has, mainly probably thinking Malik Monk probably hasn't changed much.
Well, and keep in mind too, you're going to likely have expansion coming pretty soon to a couple markets, and take a step out, maybe kind of latch on to one of those organizations that's kind of starting up again. We'll see what happens, but I think you'll see Masai Ujiri back in the NBA at some point.
Yeah, well, that and the thing with Monk too, I could see a way in which they do trade Monk, and then they backfill his position with a less expensive version in Dennis Schroder. If Dennis Schroder is your backup point guard, I'm totally fine with that. I just think that Dennis Schroder as a starting point guard is a little bit of a stretch. And so again,
can you say that again? You said who is a starting point guard?
Schroder.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Again, if you're going to lose Monk, backfilling his position with a guy like Schroder makes a ton of sense, but I don't know that there's a way that the Kings are going to sign Schroder and backfill the position unless they already have something worked out where, again, it have to be something like Jonas Valanciunas and Malik Monk, maybe even Devin Carter for a player like Emmanuel Quickley. So either way, that's a tough trade to pull off. We'll have to see if the Kings can do something. Outside of that, do we have any other thoughts on what do we? You think they're going to make some trades? Do we think they're going to be active? Where are we at here? Because we're 48 hours away from free agency starting.
A lot of it is happening already, as you mentioned. Some of the transactions that are already being agreed to. Again, nothing can happen until Monday when negotiations can quote unquote begin. But certainly things are. Those decisions will have to be made obviously on Keon Ellis, like you mentioned. There's a lot of free agent of teams' own free agents intending to re-sign. You obviously mentioned Davion Mitchell and Sam Merrill. So you're seeing some of those things, but then nothing can become official until the 6th. What's a little curious to me is to see is circling back to the Kevin Durant trade, because I think there's going to be things that are attached to that deal that haven't already been talked about, to where that deal, when it's all said and done, has some moves that it looks different than what we currently know it to be. So I think that that's still a move that I'm not saying that Durant it's going to fall through, but I think you're going to see some attachments to that deal. And I don't know if that includes Sacramento or not, but I think it could be interesting to see what kind of gets attached to it, if at all.
To the KD deal?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that they're definitely going to be active. I think that obviously searching for a point guard on the free agent market, but through all avenues. And I'm pretty encouraged by it. It doesn't feel like Scott Perry's trying to just figure out any way that this team can be the best possible version of themselves next year. Like, I feel like we've seen a handful of times throughout years prior, and it feels like a little bit more of a long-term view on all this. And again, I think that we're going to continue to see moves for this team, not only throughout the offseason, but probably through most of next year and going into next offseason as well, as Scott Perry really tries to fill out, create the identity that he's talking about, that fits their principles, and try to get guys that fit into all that. But you have to wait for the right opportunities in order to bring the top tier talents that fit that. And in the meanwhile, you try to fill in some of the tertiary pieces, like what you just did in the draft, or maybe some of these temporary fills, like what you mentioned for some of these point guards. So I think definitely expecting a lot of change over the next year. And I'm curious to see how much of that will get done in this free agency and this offseason specifically.
Yeah, let's answer a couple of questions from the chat. First of all, it was just breaking right now that legendary Pittsburgh Pirate and former Oakland A Dave Parker has passed away at the age of 74. I see it in the chat here, but shout out to the Cobra. He was incredible.
I used to love watching him warm up with a sledgehammer all the time.
Yeah,
that was cool.
And he had one of the great throws in All-Star game history from right field where he gunned a dude. Dave Parker was just a beast. So R.I.P. Dave Parker. Let's get to Tyler. There's some smoke with Kuminga. He's calling him Ham's boy because I personally don't like him as a prospect or as a player. But any seriousness with that? What would the trade look like if so? It'd have to be a sign-and trade. And it would have to be like very complicated. And to be honest with you, it'd probably hard cap the Kings again for a second straight year. Again, there are some murmurs out there that the Kings are interested, but there's also a lot of other teams that are interested in Kuminga. And I wouldn't be shocked to see a team like the Nets jump up and throw a bunch of money, or even a team like Detroit, who has the ability to open up some money, go after him. There's also the possibility of the Miami Heat. That's been a rumor out there. But I'm just, again, there's so many stories. We're so close to the Bay Area, and there's so many ties between, media members and everybody else, that there's a lot that goes into my thoughts on Kuminga. And I just I'm not high on him as a player. I'm not high on him as someone who, like the development of him. I think a little bit of it is on the Golden State Warriors, but I think also personality wise, he's just not somebody who's taken to being anything other than a number one, like, lead option. And I don't know how that would work in a place like Sacramento. So that's just my thoughts. But what do you guys, Kuminga?
It feels pretty chaotic to me. I agree with what you said about Kuminga. I think that from just conversations, but I think you can also see it on the floor. I think that he thinks he's a little bit better than he is. And I actually kind of appreciate the confidence. It just depends on how you're also going to be able to help the team in the moment. And I think that's why a Brooklyn makes a whole lot of sense. There's an old podcast clip of BJ Armstrong speaking very glowingly of Jonathan Kuminga. So I guess if the Kings have a great evaluation of this guy and think there's more there than what Golden State was able to get, then I guess that's the logic, because to me, I don't really see the fit with this team. But maybe you're just taking more of a long-term shot there. I also am skeptical about, like, how much are we talking here? You mentioned it'd have to be a sign and trade that would hard cap them. I personally am pretty out on the Kuminga idea.
As am I, although you took the words right out of my mouth. I said BJ Armstrong seems to be a fan.
Yeah.
I've I kind of agree with majority of what you guys say. I also just don't think that's a move that they're super interested in. I think there's a maybe an intriguing way to, kick some tires on it and maybe see what shakes out. Because I can't envision a scenario where, they'd have interest, bring him in here, and then maybe you offload some pieces and totally disrupt maybe the path that you're going down, to see if you bet on somebody becoming a star like Kuminga. Like, I think there is a belief that he could become something that he currently isn't. But I think the non-willingness to, much like Nique Clifford, when we were talking about at the start of the podcast, like not being able to do what's in the best interest of the team and try to create your own path and do things your own way, should probably scare some people off. But I think there's other people that will steer right into that and go, how do you maximize that? Maybe he's right. Maybe there is something there. I mean, he's clearly a very talented player. I don't think any of us would dispute that. But how does it translate to success? And some people will clearly just talk about, giving him more opportunity. Steve Kerr obviously has reservations about playing him with a team that's constructed the way that the Warriors are and kind of the stuff that they are built around. People will bet on the talent. So you might have a group of people within this organization that would like to bet on the talent, realizing that the Kings aren't nearly with a future star player yet. And maybe that kind of accelerates that process. But I just don't see a move out there, or have not heard of a move out there that would actually get that to over the finish line for Sacramento and Kuminga.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, I mean, it's just a super complicated transaction too, and it depends on how much he wants. If we were talking about a 4-year, $100 million deal, that's one thing. $25 million a year, I mean, that's a lot of money. But the Kings could figure out a way to come up with something like that, as far as a sign and trade that would make it, like a net neutral trade. The one thing about Kuminga is, and this is crazy, he's played 4 years in the league, and he's still only 22, and he's younger than anyone the Kings drafted this year. And he's younger than anyone the Kings drafted last year. And he's younger than, I believe, anyone they drafted the year before. He's considerably younger than Keegan Murray. And he's entering his 5th NBA season, where Murray's entering his 4th NBA season.
He went to college at the NBA. That's basically what he did.
Yeah, he went straight from the G League, Ignite, to the NBA. Let's just hit some of these questions. Are we hearing anything about Cam Whitmore and the Kings? I haven't heard anything, but I love Cam Whitmore. I would take Cam Whitmore in a second. I do. I think he's a tough-nosed dude.
James gives his love away.
He feels very Kuminga to me, but with a assumed much lower price tag, which does it for me.
Yeah, you're probably looking at like a 2nd-round pick,
right,
for him at this point. And like I don't know, maybe I think the problem that I have with the Houston Rockets is that they have so many young players that someone was always going to get left behind, and it feels like Cam is the guy that got left behind. And I think Jabari got left behind too, but now they're trying to elevate him back to the mix. But they've got so much talent that a guy like Reed Shepherd can't even get on the floor, and a guy like Cam Whitmore can't even get on the floor. So I think, again, when you're competing with Amin Thompson, you're competing with Jabari, and you're competing with Alperen Şengün, and Dylan Brooks was there. And like, there's just a stack of players that you're trying to fight through and get minutes. It just makes it really difficult. So even, Jalen Green was there. Like, for Whitmore to get minutes at the 3-4, Tari Eason, like, how many players do they have under the age of like 24? And it's just tough. So he might not develop in anything. And then again, he might not be a guy who, like what you said, Brenden, that kind of fits the Kuminga bill, where he thinks he's a lot better than he is. But I would take a flyer on him with 2nd-round pick.
What do you love about him?
I think he plays hard. I think he's physical. I think he's an elite athlete. Yeah, I think he can develop into something. Every time he's on the court, he scores.
You notice him, that's for sure. You do notice him when he's on the court.
Good and bad.
Yeah, he's one of those players that, like, the Kings just don't usually have. a player that when he gets hot and he decides to like take over a game, like getting to the basket, there's not a lot of people that can stop him. But
he's also 2 years younger than Kuminga. He's 20.
He's 20. Yeah, with 2 years experience in the league. Let's see. What else do we got? Any other questions?
Someone was asking about Herb Jones and the Pelicans. There was a little thing
people
out there.
Just like, how can we abuse the Pelicans?
Yeah, well, no, and that's Brenden went exactly the way I would have. If I'm a Scott Perry or whether I'm a first-time GM or a long-time GM, they might be the first call I'm making, especially given what they've been doing over the past several days. Because especially surrounding the draft, everyone's going to want to try and take advantage or hop on and see if they can, try and take advantage of a team. And, it'd be interesting to see what Joe Dumars thinks of some of the pieces on his roster and your own roster. And obviously there's a Kings connection there. So
yeah, again, they traded 23 and a 2026 unprotected first, the more favorable of New Orleans and Milwaukee, for 13 to move up 10 spots.
And then you had people around the league saying that they could have moved into the top 5 with that, like with an unprotected like Bucks
for next
pick.
year, which is,
and it's next year's pick. When who knows what the Bucks are going to look like? Like the Bucks could be just one of the worst teams in the league especially if we get to a point where Giannis asks out. I think there's going to be a really interesting point here after free agency where things are going to get very awkward for a couple of teams. And so I think as opposed to like, the trades that happen around the draft, the trades that happen around free agency and the build up to free agency and the draft, we're going to see this window after all of that once the dust settles. And if Milwaukee's not good, they're going to things can get really rough really quick.
Or New Orleans is just still not good.
Well, New Orleans, he's already made some crazy moves. I don't even know what's happening there. I mean, I'm not taking Jordan Poole's contract, especially not for CJ McCollum. So yeah, like Joe Dumars and Scott Perry are super, super close. Like that's where Scott Perry got to start with the Detroit Pistons and Joe Dumars.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. He was a college coach. Scott Perry was a college coach and was just I think he just left a college and was going to hang out at some event, and Joe Dumars and him ran into each other, and he said, "Hey, what are you looking to do?" And he's like, "I don't know. I was thinking possibly getting into an NBA front office." And he's like, "Hey, come see me tomorrow." The next thing you know, they were together in Detroit for a long time.
Passing jobs out like candy.
Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on Ty Jerome? There's some people in here that would like to know about Ty Jerome.
I don't think he's a point guard.
Just a scorer.
Yeah. I don't know if bounced around. He certainly had a great year. He filled in admirably when they were without point guard at times. But I don't know that I would commit a lot of money to him. Interesting player, but I don't know. I think that's one of those ones where if you're in a room full of your team, you try to pull the room and have probably some pretty lively debates about him. But I think there's I think everybody might have a different idea of what Ty Jerome is.
Yeah, I think I'd rather go. I don't think he's like your long-term answer. And so I think I'd rather go a little bit more stopgap, like assuming that Ty Jerome, this is probably his big contract. Guys like Dennis Schroder, Russell Westbrook, Tyus Jones, you would think it would be a little bit cheaper. And I think I'd rather go in that route because I just don't think, like Sean mentioned, I don't think the playmaking is quite there in my mind to be a long-term option. I mean, even if there was a crazy amount of growth. Did he end up winning 6-man? Maybe he got second. He was in the conversation. I think Peyton Pritchard won, actually.
He did. Pritchard won this 6-man.
Yeah. But right up there. But I think that you kind of already have that in your Malik Monk, obviously. And that's not somebody that I'm trying to, give a 4-year MLE to necessarily.
Like if you were, and I brought it up before, but to me, if you have to pay Ty Jerome a certain amount of money, it's obviously not a max deal, but to go after a guy that you hope can blossom and you have questions about whether or not he's a point guard, just go trade for Tyler Hero.
Or just that would Monk on your team.
Right. Keep Malik Monk. Yeah. There's just things like that. Like however that plays out. I don't think, I think honestly, they would want a more solid answer in terms of a, be it a long-term point guard or a stopgap point guard. But I think point guard still would be the optimal phrasing.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest. Ty Jerome is almost 28 years old. And like, it's not like his career path has been like spectacular. I mean, he averaged 12.5 points per game this season in Cleveland. The year before, he averaged 2, and he only played 2 games in the NBA. The year before that, he averaged 6.9, 7.1. Like, this isn't a player who's really busted through until right now. And sometimes that's just opportunity, but also it's tough. I don't know that I would go out again unless you move on from Malik Monk and you're trying to backfill that position.
It makes me think of Jonathan Simmons is the first one I thought of like, you don't sign Jonathan Simmons, you go get the next one. And that feels very much in the Ty Jerome territory for me.
Austin yelling at me about Tyler Hero saying he's not a point guard. That was my point. Like, neither is Ty Jerome.
I agree.
So if you want to go get a guy who's not a point guard who can fill in as a point guard, I'd rather have Tyler Hero.
Austin Stout says trade for Reed Shepherd. Houston doesn't have a reason to trade Reed Shepherd. Reed Shepherd's super young, and he can sit there and work behind Fred VanVleet, who just signed, I think, a 2-year deal. He opted out of a 1-year, or they were going to turn down his deal, and then they gave him like a 2-year 50, right? So that's still like you're going to see those two as a tandem over the next couple of years, especially when you consider that they moved on from Jalen Green. At least I think you're going to see a lot of those two playing together.
My young guard on a crowded backcourt that I really like is Anthony Black. Only a rookie last year, but just kind of curious to see how that continues to develop over there in Orlando with all their guards.
Yeah, look, I think the Kings need, if they're going to bring in a player like Dennis Schroder, they really need to have a young point guard to work with him and to develop. And I know somebody asked about, I don't know where that question was. There we go. If Devin Carter is just a shooting guard, or do we think he can play some point? Like, I'm not going into the season thinking that he's
not your starting point guard.
Yeah, no. And I don't even know that he's my backup point guard. I
mean, you have to. I think you're going to see a lot in the summer. As long as he's not traded. I think you'll see him in the summer league. I think.
Are you sure about that? Because I've heard.
I'm not. I'm actually not certain about it, but I think that's you'll see him at some point in the summer league. That's at least my guess there.
I hope so. Yeah.
I mean, it would be I think it would be very alarming if you didn't.
I think the point guard thing, I mean, he would tell you himself coming into the year last year that he wasn't point guard. He was more of a combo guy.
Right.
And I don't think that we were given a reason to feel any differently, but with how they're currently constructed, like, sure, he can be the point guard if you're saying defense is how you're defining these positions, because you can have Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan handling the ball, 1 or 2 of whoever's on the floor, and he can defend the one, I guess, but I don't think he's your primary initiator even in second units.
Yeah. And look, I think if you're bringing back Keon Ellis, if you've got Zach LaVine, and we don't know what's going to happen with Malik Monk, you start stacking up, like, you add in the potential for Schroder, all of a sudden Devin Carter's like your 6th guard. And
Nique Clifford is very Devin Carter, just a little bigger.
Well, I think Nique can play the backcourt.
It's coming up in the chat a lot here. Like, no, I am not out on Devin Carter at all, for the record. I don't think he's a bust at all. I don't think any of those decisions in my mind have been made. I'm not even talking from the team standpoint. I'm saying from my own. Like, no, I want to see a lot of Devin Carter, to be honest. But I would want to see him in summer league. Absolutely. Especially if I was the Kings front office. Yeah.
And Megan says everyone out on Carter is Davion 2.0. Look, I really like Davion Mitchell as a player, and I actually really enjoy Davion Mitchell the person. I just think that the Kings don't play his style of basketball, and the Miami Heat do, and I'm really happy that he found his home. Like, because I think he has. I think he'll be. I mean, he signed a 2-year or he's about to sign a 2-year, $24 million deal. That to me, like, good for him. I'm excited to see him develop and be in a system that just fits his talents. Because that's what I think Davion's just waiting for that moment where he just fit and he found it in Miami. And so I'm hoping that he sticks around there for a long time because I think he's a very, very good basketball player.
For Devin, I think it's the 3-point shot. Like that, there's obviously more layers to his game, but I think that is the biggest X factor on like, okay, can you stay on the floor? Because funky form, whatever, but you just have to be able to knock it down consistently. And that has yet to be proven.
Yeah. The baby daddy asked Sean, James, Brendo, anyone of you going to be in Vegas? Brenden, you're going to Vegas. Sean, are you going to Vegas?
It's a little up in the air at the moment. So
okay.
This might be the first time in Is my streak 15 years? Might be 15 years, something like that. Which, to be honest, would be just fine with me if I stay home. But I'm not. I actually do not know at the moment.
Who am I going to?
We are.
I have to figure that out. Sounds like you have 3 of you.
It's true. Yeah, I'll be fine.
I am not going to Vegas. And actually, like this week, we'll do at least 1, maybe even 2 podcasts, depending on what happens during the week. The week after, I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to go disappear. I'm going to disappear to Cabo for 5 days.
Ooh.
This guy.
Yeah, it's good. I need to get out, stretch the legs, get out a little bit, enjoy the outside. All right,
Steven with the F1 review. I have not seen it yet. I would like to. I need to check that out. Looks great.
Okay.
I'm not even an F1 guy, but it looks great.
Yeah. The Brad Pitt angle is interesting. Do we have any other questions that are pertinent that we need to answer? I know I started one earlier. It was about the San Antonio Spurs pick, and we talked about that a little bit. There is a nuance to that I'll bring up. The Kings traded. Okay, so in the draft on draft day, they traded the Spurs pick. It's protected 1 through 16, and then if it's after 16, they lose it. If it's before 16, then the Kings get the selection, and OKC gets the Kings 2 second-round picks. The Kings can actually trade the front side of that. Sorry, the Kings can trade the other part of that pick as well, just so people understand. They can go out and say, hey, we'll trade 1 through 16 to somebody of that Spurs pick. And it doesn't matter what the Kings do that year. It only matters what the Spurs do. Right. So that's a Spurs pick. So if the Spurs are good, the Kings will lose a pick. If the Spurs aren't very good, then the Kings won't lose a pick.
Got it.
Cool. Let's see. Do we have anything else?
I did not go to Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh,
I did not go to Wu-Tang Clan. I would have, but
I thought you were going to. Oh, okay.
You know what pissed me off too? I almost bought. I've seen Maroon 5 a lot. I've seen them a lot over the few years. I think I've seen them like 11 times, and I almost pulled the trigger to buy tickets for them again when they get here in October. But they're playing on a Friday, and high school football is interfering our coverage at Channel 3, and I'm not happy about it.
Oh, boo. Boo. Okay.
Maroon 5 is awesome, by the way. Nothing closes like Maroon 5.
Yeah, I kind of want to go see Maroon 5 again because the time that I saw them here at Golden 1, his wife had a baby the night before, and I thought Adam Levine looked exhausted and just not, I thought it was a great show. I didn't think it was like over the top though. Like I just thought he looked a little worn out.
Maroon 5 is like a lot of those bands that people love to hate, but then if you go and check them out, you're like, wow, they perform way better than anything I've heard on an album.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Brendan, take a date.
I could do some Maroon 5.
That's good advice.
Maroon 5.
Yeah, that it's like going to see Timberlake. Timberlake's a blast to go see in concert. That dude puts in like 30,000 steps. Like you're sitting there. I did do that last year. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, he's all over the place. With the Sixers keeping Grimes around, what does that say about McCain money wise? From Sawyer J.
He is.
I don't know.
Going into year 2 or 3, McCain. 2,
year
right?
Two.
Year 2.
Yeah, year 2.
Yeah, not worried about the money yet, right?
No. Yeah, you got a long time to worry about that.
Brenden, you missed our last podcast. Tyrese Maxey was the topic of conversation so often when he hasn't been brought up once a couple days later. So I like that because I'm like, I don't see how in the world people think Tyrese Maxey is leaving Philly, but
yeah,
we'll see.
I think the only way is if someone just overpaid. That would be the biggest thing. Tino Lee, what do you think Cam Whitmore's value would be in a trade? Like probably a second round pick for Whitmore.
Oh.
I would say a second round pick. I'd also like if let's say the Kings were to consider a Devin Carter for Cam Whitmore swap.
No thanks.
Oh really?
No.
Okay.
Hell no. You would?
21st pick in the draft versus 13th pick in the draft?
No, I'm not doing it.
Oh, I would. I just like positionally, I think it's a better fit.
Also, I don't see Houston having any interest in doing that trade either. So
I would, yeah.
Well,
I think for Houston, it probably makes sense to wait. Like maybe the Devin deal. I don't think they would just do it for a second. From that perspective, it probably makes more sense for them to just wait and see what they have. But I don't know. Something I like the upside swing of Cam, but I think that Devin has somewhat of that himself too.
Right.
Okay. Interesting.
Also, like, yeah, you're just talking about moving a second round pick to get Cam Whitmore. I'm not moving a guy I just took in the first round last year who you have, to basically have them. No, I'm not doing that.
Interesting. Okay. I think that's going to wrap it up. If you guys are still here and you don't mind, can you hit the thumbs up for us? That would be amazing. Let's see if I can make that.
Oh yeah, I forgot there's the bubbles.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, mine doesn't do that shit. How come?
It's because your thumb's deformed.
My thumb doesn't do that thing that your guys's do.
I think it's part of your Google, like I don't know. There's a button up above.
If you give a middle finger, does it bubble up too?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Alex C. DeRozan for Harden. That's not going to happen. Anyway, yeah.
Brenden just figured out the virtual backgrounds.
I literally just found it for the first time, actually.
Wow, look at you. Where are you out there, rich guy? You gonna go play some piano when we're done here?
My humble abode.
Yeah. Let's
go play that piano.
Let's do final thoughts. What do you guys got?
I'm excited for Summer League. I always find it fun when new guys get drafted. I think it's fun to dive through old film. It's one of the only times that YouTube TV feels worth it for their unlimited DVR. So going through all that, excited to be out in Summer League, see some of these guys, see Dip as the head coach out there. I'm curious to talk to him a little bit more, and it's fun times. I would say enjoy this. We got Monday with some free agency that'll last for a little while. But it's going to get real quiet after Summer League, as you guys know, but fans might forget a little bit. It takes some time before like a month and a half, 2 months of just where it's real quiet, nothing going on. So I would say enjoy these next couple weeks for sure.
Okay.
Who's going to be the guy you fall in love with this year?
I think it's Maxime. I think I'm already there.
Wow. Lower back tattoo?
I watched it happen. I literally felt it happen yesterday. I was like watching film and I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting way too excited right now. Like, but I do this every year. Relax, Sean. But I do this every year. I think that it's just, you see the potential in some guys and I like to keep tabs. So, but I have learned, my Robert Woodard, Jamias Ramsey love, maybe I'm like, all right, I got to tone this down a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It worked with Keon. I mean, you got the tattoo and everything.
Good.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. When is the press conference? I have no idea. It'll be sometime this week.
Coming up this week.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they're waiting for a press conference. Typically it would have been today. But I guess when you're drafting 24th and 42, and you didn't know if you were going to have a draft pick, it kind of changes things. So
I have heard it's because a big reason why is to get is, at least in Nique's case, like he's going to remain in Sacramento. We talked about the work ethic, stuff like that. Like he will be like remain. So this is
taking time to get here.
Correct. Get some things situated, because your summer is Sacramento. Your off season is still Sacramento. So
got it. Like once he's here, he's gonna be here.
Correct. Now before it was like you had California Classic, so a lot of these guys don't go home until after that. So when they get there, it's like you're there for weeks and weeks and weeks. So with California Classic, then Summer League, if you give them a good portion of a week to get situated and now come in, it's like, all right, now settle in. So
okay. Let's just speed round. Will Zach LaVine be on the team by the end of summer? Yes, is my guess.
Probably.
Probably.
I don't know.
I'll say yes.
Okay. Will Malik Monk be on the team come training camp?
I don't know.
I'll say no.
I would lean no at this point, but that doesn't mean that it's no.
I mean, let's put it this way. Like if you were to ask, we did this weeks ago with podcasts earlier in the off season, where it was like, who's the guy that is most likely to be traded? And we all said it was DeMar DeRozan. Well, if you listen to what Scott Perry said on 1140 just yesterday, I don't think you glean anything from that and think that all of a sudden, like, I think if you're hearing that, you're like, I think DeRozan's going to be on the team. So
Which
I think
what he said was that he is excited to work with DeRozan this year. Hold on. I have the full thing.
Well, he's finding it. I mean, that's how fluid these things are. You get the draft is now in the rear view. And so he wasn't moved. You still have plenty of opportunity to do so, but you've also had over a month to set up essentially a move to get him out of town and bring in something else. So if your return on your product that you're shopping isn't good enough to where you vision success without him versus success with him, and I think you're at that point now where you're looking at he's a part of this season. So I'm not saying that that's the case, but hearing those comments from Scott Perry certainly would make you think that.
DeRozan is all in, and I'm looking forward to working with him this season. And I think that as this has progressed a little bit more, we're hearing more from Scott and kind of just other things as decisions are being made or considered and stuff. I mean, talk about trying to create a culture. DeMar's kind of the perfect guy for that, to be honest. And I get the fit questions and things, but like, who do you want mentoring your rookies? Like DeMar DeRozan is a prime guy for that. And so, just also thinking about if you're looking for high character guys trying to build a culture, set an identity, while DeMar has his on-court fits that draw some concern with some of these other guys, he plays into that pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Go ahead, Sean.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. You first.
I was going to say, just on court, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Not nearly as well as you thought. And to expect something different this year, I'm confused why you would think it would work differently. Like
I also think too, there was another thing that came out of that conversation was when he was asked about the point guard situation, he seemed to steer into free agency and not necessarily a trade possibility. Which was also kind of the big thing that I took away from that conversation. So,
yeah, that's why I think we're hearing more and more about Schroder and potential 2-year deal in Sacramento. So would not be surprised at all if that were the case. Where, again, I think initially his agent was trying to pump up his value with the Pistons. It's possible that just the opportunity in Sacramento might look better. I mean, I don't know if the team is going to be better. But you certainly, could see a pathway to him being a starting point guard in Sacramento, where he's not going to be that in Detroit. He would be a 6-man. Cool. All right. Let's see. Final thoughts from me. I don't know. Be safe out there. I have no idea about the Sac State moves. I know people have asked about the Sac State getting shut down to move to a different conference. They moved to a different conference, but they didn't get bumped up to the real deal, right, Sean?
Yeah, they don't get, football's not getting FBS. Improve your facilities, good things will come.
Cool. There we go. Okay. We did talk about it's right here at the end we did talk about the Keon situation. You have to go back and listen to it. They've got until tomorrow to decide whether they'll pick up his player option for this year, which would make him an unrestricted free agent, or decline his player option, which would make him a restricted free agent right now. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Keon in the next 24 hours. Cool. I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Again, hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel. Do all that stuff. Thanks for joining us on Saturday. I know it's really hot outside, so maybe a lot of you are staying in. And it's 94 on my watch.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to go sit on the lake.
It's not 110. It's not 105.
I don't know what you guys are doing.
Ready for Vegas.
Brenden, what are you doing tonight?
Nothing. Nothing. Actually, I might have something going on. I'll let you know. Text me, Sean.
Okay.
I'll
text you right now.
No.
Maybe. All right, sweet. That's gonna do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. We'll be back at least once, maybe twice this week. I expect it to be a busy week. I think all of us expect there to be at least some movement, some signings, potential trades. I don't think this is going to be a quiet week at all in Sacramento. So for KCRA 3, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you very soon.